To order the Tuesday, April 16th, 2019 regular City Board of Education regular meeting. Mr. Hoskins, can you call the roll?
Mr. Neal?
Here.
Mrs. Barcheck?
Here.
Mr. Singer?
Here.
Mr. Hennings?
Here.
Mr. Roper?
Here. Stand for the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge
allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
All right. We'll start off with student achievement.
You got it. Thank you, Mr. President. We have got this evening the high school, and I'm going to welcome high school principal, Mr. Wingler, up, and I think he's got some guests and friends that he's going to introduce as well.
There you go.
Absolutely.
Okay. All right, so tonight we're going to talk a little bit about an award we recently received, along with some other districts, for Project Lead the Way Distinguished School. In the past,
Is it on? There you go.
so in the past I've come up here, this is my third one this year, I've talked a lot about culture.
Okay.
Um,
Do you need a cough drop?
I've talked to all of you individually about things that we're trying to do at the high school to kind of get kids re-engaged, excited about education. And Dr. Blackoff and I have had many conversations about pathways to success and what does that mean? You know, when you talk about high school, everybody talks about college, because certainly college and getting ready for college is a big deal. However, the goal as a parent of 3 teenage daughters currently is independence. And what does that look like when they're leaving high school? Are they ready for work? Are they ready to transition beyond high school? So we look at kind of skill-based learning. What are we doing here at Brooklyn High School to kind of change the way we teach kids? And then career tech. We know Polaris is a wonderful place. So what I thought I would do is, this is the article. I don't have the, I'll email this out to you guys so you can click the article. Cleveland.com did an article on the award we received
You just
for
clicked on it.
Project Lead the Way. What that means is our incoming 7th and 8th graders take classes through Polaris. Robotics, medical detectives, and Dr. Hughes has her engineering classes that results in AP computer science. Why is this relevant? Why does this matter? Besides the fact that we won an award that let us put a poster outside, which is really nice to see, because when the words distinguished in school always go well together. But the bigger issue we've talked about is how are we teaching kids? And Project Lead the Way kind of ties into project-based learning, hands-on, skill sets, learning to do things. So I brought these 3 young men, 8th grade students. I'll let them introduce themselves, and they were going to share with you why they like robotics and Project Lead the Way. Come on, don't be shy.
You go first.
Jump in.
You're first.
Just
You
stand right there.
Yeah.
Project it out to everybody.
Okay, so I'm Adam DeVoe, and I like Project Lead the Way in robotics because it lets me be creative. The teacher doesn't talk forever, he lets us do stuff, and we get to have fun with our friends.
Next young man.
Hello, I am Joe Dennis, and I like robotics because he lets us do our own thing, and it pushes us to the limits, and we get to be with our friends and have fun.
Hi, I'm Logan Mulvey. One of my favorite things about the Project Lead the Way classes, and more specifically Mr. Goodwin's classes, are the amount of hands-on things that we can do and the extracurriculars that are involved, including the after-school robotics club, which I know myself and Joey about.
And how long has the club been going on?
We just started, and we are about to go to a competition in North Olmsted in the middle of May.
So their clubs, this is a new addition to the club. Mr. Goodwin does a lot of extra. And, you know, we're proud of our Project Lead the Way teachers. They do a great job, and I was talking with Mr. Goodwin today. I had him look through this very briefly, and he couldn't be here this evening, but I asked him, you know, why he felt this was so successful. 95% of our incoming 7th graders are taking at least one class by their own choice. We didn't force them. Almost 100% of our 8th graders are taking these classes because the kids love them. And it's funny, we were talking about math instruction, because math instruction is kind of my real big thing for the future here, and how do we teach math. And Mr. Goodwin said it for me. He said most districts he's been in, because he's been in more than one, you could cut a poster of a teacher from 1957 and we still teach math the same way we did in 1957. It's It really hasn't changed from when us old guys and ladies were in school until now. And Project Lead the Way, and now these guys, you heard the words fun, yes. You heard the words fun, engaging, learning, and what we want to do is take what these guys are doing in 8th grade and have them come back in 4 years and tell you they did this type of learning all the way through school. They were coding today. This picture's from today. They were coding. The students were showing me how to make robots move without touching the robot. Robotics and medical detectives, which these guys talked about. This was an 8th grade science project last week on friction and different ways to describe friction. The kids in the 8th grade had built their own roller coaster. And it's significant because I know it's cool to build things, but they were going up and pointing to the areas and describing the difference in the curves and the differences between kinetic and potential energy. And there was one young man in particular that is in Mr. Hare's office quite regularly. Let's be frank. He was engaged. He explained everything. He was excited about friction and science. As soon as the lesson was over, he got in trouble. But my point is, for the time he was doing, and the reason why this is significant from an academic perspective is that this is where I want to see Brooklyn High School go for math, science, and as many subjects as possible. So we have some things coming, computer science 1 and 2. We have Microsoft is helping Mr. Temis with a class. AP statistics is something we want to bring. We just got a $1,000 grant to train a teacher to do that. I want to change math instruction, less sitting in your butt, more doing. And then if our numbers permit, Dr. Blackoff and I talked about biomedical programming through Polaris in the future, if we can support it. And that's a big if, but we're working on that. And then are some of our stars, the National Technical Honor Society induction at Polaris, it was last week. Unfortunately, Lisette was here. Fahima couldn't be in the picture, but these are the faces of technical education, and their cumulative GPA is 3.8. It's not what it was 30 years ago where you went and you hammered on a rock. If you've been out to Polaris, the new facility, I got a tour, holy cow, it's unbelievable. And that's the kind of learning activities and engagement that we want to bring here.
Perfect. Thank you.
Thanks.
Good job. I walked down the hall about 2 weeks ago, got run over by a robot. They're out there. Those kids
Well,
are
I want to thank Mr. Wingler, and obviously I want to thank our students for coming up and doing that. I know it's difficult sometimes to present in front of adults, but you did a wonderful job, first of all. Secondly, that's exactly, I mean, I couldn't have said it better than Mr. Wingler. I mean, that's what we want. We want engaged students. But really, when you look at middle grades and you look at 7th and 8th grade, there's a lot of research out there that shows that that's when students start to identify some of their passions and some of the things that they really, really love. And if you go back and you start to ask yourself, when did you kind of find out this is what you wanted to do? Usually roots right itself around those middle grades. And so it's exciting that these students are having a lot of opportunities like we're able to provide them in Brooklyn. So it's exciting.
Good.
Thanks.
Thank you. Good job. Next, we're going to go on to comments from visitors. In order for the board to fulfill its obligation to complete the planned agenda in an effective and efficient fashion, a maximum of 30 minutes of public participation as it pertains to school-related topics will be permitted at each meeting. Each person wishing to address the board will approach the podium and state his or her name and address. If several people wish to speak, each person will be allotted 3 minutes until the total time of 30 minutes is used. During that period, no person may speak twice until all who desire to speak have had an opportunity to do so. The period of public participation may be extended by a vote of the majority of the board. Anybody?
Good evening, my name is Earl Bloom, 4720 Forest Edge Drive. The other day I was on the internet and I pulled a copy of the Brooklyn 5-year forecast off and I printed it. And when I was looking at it, the second line is identified as tangible personal property tax. And it shows that we're getting something through the years through 2023. Now I know that the loss of the tangible personal property tax is one of the main issues that we have in seeking this levy. We need to replace these funds. But yet I see that there is some funds still coming in, over 1,649,000 plus in 2023. I just talked to Mr. Husted there about it, and I think maybe to explain this and understand the confusion so other people who are seeing this don't get the wrong idea. I'd like to have an explanation on it for the public. Thank you.
Got it.
Yeah, you. With the board's permission, I'd like to address that.
If you want to go ahead, let's go ahead.
All right.
Everybody's okay with it?
Okay.
Let's
So,
address it.
we receive taxes from residential, commercial, industrial properties, and we also receive taxes for public utility, tangible personal property, which is different than what we've talked about over the course of the last couple of years about the loss of tangible personal property. Tangible personal property on businesses was for inventories that were held and personal property that was held by individual businesses. So I remember when I was young, just a couple weeks ago, that they always, if you remember, they always had sales at auto dealers at the end of the month. They wanted to reduce their inventory. And the reason they did that was because they had to report their inventory as tangible personal property and pay taxes on everything that was on the lot yet. So when I was growing up, we didn't have as many cars. You didn't see nearly as many cars in lots like you do now. But now, since they're not paying for that, they can have as many cars on the lots as they want. So they would have these sales and get rid of that inventory because they had to pay property tax on that. That's the kind of property tax, tangible personal property tax, that has been eliminated. It was over $2 million for this district because we had a lot of businesses and a lot of tangible personal property. So that line item is for public utility, tangible personal property. We call it PUP, Public Utility Personal Property, and that's our abbreviation for that. Now, the 5-year forecast has two lines. It has real estate, and it has tangible personal property. So that tangible personal property is only for the public utility tangible personal property. The other tangible personal property has been gone since before 2010. What we're talking about as far as the reimbursement, the state said we're going to stop collecting that tax in that year, and we will hold the districts harmless for the amount that they lost. So that came from actually the CAT tax, which was a commercial activity tax, and that was applied to all businesses at that time, including grocery stores. Before they didn't pay a tax. Now they have to pay a tax, so they have to pay a tax on their net profit. So that money was, the CAT tax was collected, and we were reimbursed for what we lost, but they cut it all out. So what we've been getting, what we've been talking about since 2010 is a reimbursement on that lost tax. And the state has slowly deleted or eliminated that tax. So it's a reimbursement of a tax that we lost, and that will be going away in 2021, so in fiscal 22. So the difference between those two things is the tangible personal property tax is gone. I can show you in the tax abstract where it was there, and now it's completely wiped out. But we were getting a reimbursement. That's slowly going away. But the tax on line 1.02 of the 5-year forecast is for personal property on public utilities. I hope that clears that up for everyone. So
Mr. Blum?
they are two things. Now,
It is school finance.
Extremely complex.
in the past, this district didn't separate those two things in their forecast. Everything was up under real estate. But when I get the settlement from the county, they are two separate things. And they're collected at a different rate. Tangible personal property for public utilities is collected at the full voted millage, whereas the real estate property on residential and commercial industrial is at effective rate. It's affected by House Bill 920, whereas the tangible is not. So if we separate those things, it's easier to calculate how that will adjust as real estate valuations adjust, because that one is a solid voted millage as opposed to an effective rate. So now that I've confused everybody with this lengthy explanation on what that does, they are two separate things. I've separated them out in the forecast. They were not done before. So it did look like it was all gone, and now it's back, but it's only back as far as public utilities go.
Thank you.
I bet you won't ask that question again.
Don't get me started.
Yeah. Just so everybody knows, school finance, I think everybody on the board's been here 10-plus years, except for Bob. It's like learning Chinese at times. You know what I mean? Unless you have his degree. So thank you. Mr. Blum, you okay with that?
Yes.
Thank you. David, thank you. We're going to go on to the superintendent's report. On
I
to,
think there's others.
oh, I'm sorry, go ahead.
Mike.
I'm sorry, Mike.
Hi, my name is Mike Changieri. I live at 8705 Morton Avenue in the fine city of Brooklyn. Two things. I had the opportunity to attend a statewide town hall meeting for families of students with disabilities. And I was very much excited about the comments and the data that they were collecting. This wasn't just another dog and pony show. We're gonna roll out this program and then boom. I've got a website that anyone can comment. You can do it anonymously. This covers the entire state of Ohio. Governor DeWine and the Department of Ed are going through everything that we've been paying for as taxpayers in Department of Education and finding out, is it worth it? Can we change it? And can we make it better or eliminate it? I was really excited because they're changing their strategy to include all children as a whole. So the emphasis in 2020, if this becomes real, will be on the whole child. So they're not going to have definitions. It'll still be the IEP and all that, but you won't have subcategories of kids, which is very offensive to me because no one's a subcategory of anything. They did listen to me for about 90 minutes. I was with one other lady, and they typed their fingers till they were basically gone. I didn't hold anything back. I told them about the good things. I told them about how my experiences are, where I've been with the kids. They did say, anybody wants to comment, this is going to be, at the end of the 1 year, they're gonna take all the data and all the people's comments, and they're going to make decisions, very important decisions on how we fund the districts. The second point was, I know we've been seeing all these articles in the newspaper, and the one I looked at was from the Columbus Dispatch, and there was another one. I actually called, since I was at this meeting, I brought it up to them. There's nothing being negotiated other than political fodder, let's say. They're talking about it. It's at the finance committee level, which is like what I'm saying. I'm just talking. There's nothing in writing. But the ultimate goal is by the end of 2020, they're going to add a substantial amount of funding to the state of Ohio's education programs. Unfortunately, for the end of this school year and all of next school year, if we have a shortfall, the programs that my kids enjoy will ultimately be cut, and then when the money is returned by the state complying with the constitutional, complying with the court-ordered funding, the programs will be gone. So then we'll have to start over. So I guess I'm looking at it from, I got my sign in the front yard. I've looked at the numbers. I talked to people from the State Department of Education, and not just, I talked to the one guy that's on the board for financing. And I told him exactly what's going on. You cannot send us an unfunded mandate to the City of Brooklyn schools because I'm butting heads with the superintendent and everyone here trying to get this program for my kids that we need. So instead of paying you, Mr. Executive, at the state, we need to take that money and send it to the city of Brooklyn so we can pay for dyslexic education, dyscalculia education, and now, and I don't know if anybody knows about this, the state and the federal government have been cutting schools for the deaf. Might not sound,
We're gonna hold,
I'm sorry.
anybody else want to speak? Anybody else need to speak?
it was gonna be
Go
quick.
ahead. Go ahead, finish up.
They're cutting the schools of the deaf across the country. Unfortunately, that's not making headline news. Kids with hearing loss that can't hear are being rolled out into public schools. Well, it's just like what happens with my kids and all the other kids that have minor little issues. There's no money. So we have to get the taxpayers of the city of Brooklyn to pay for that shortfall because of bureaucratic BS. And when the money rolls in, I would be the first one standing in line here at the school board looking at how much we can give back to the city of Brooklyn taxpayers. So to wrap it all up in a nutshell, and I wanted to say Happy Easter to everybody. And so anyways, that was my only thought. So if I have any questions, I don't know how you want to get this website out.
You know what, why don't you,
I can read it, it's real easy.
well, go ahead, and then if
I'll
you'll
give you a
send, if
copy
you'll
of it.
send it to all of us via
Yeah.
email, can you do that?
Yeah, yeah.
Alright.
It's SWD roadmap at ed.ohio.gov. And you can find it on their website. And I was totally engaged. I got the breakdown of all of the stuff we covered. And I'm a first time in a very long time at the state level. I'm pretty excited. I think a lot of it is Governor DeWine is taking the money and utilizing it appropriately where we need it for the kids. So thank you. Happy Easter, everybody.
Thank you, knock
Thanks.
on what he does. Thank you. Anybody else? We're to go on to the superintendent's report, on to Dr. Glykoff,
Thank you.
please.
That was an unexpected nice segue to what I was gonna talk to. So, thank you, Mr. Chingary. You didn't even see my notes. So, my superintendent's report is brief tonight. Even though I am standing, I will not stand for too long. I know you guys get nervous when I get up here.
Yeah,
Issue one, obviously just the need for here. Obviously, we know this is coming up. It's less than a month away. Again, just to recap, this is a 10-year emergency operating levy. It's a set amount levy for $2.25 million annually. It's 10 years. You know, you as the Board of Education, I think that your decision to say, hey, it was a continuing in November, let's make it just have a length to it, because that's what we heard at many of our meetings. So that's coming up. Why the need again? This is, you know, everything we've talked about. The tangible personal property tax, we gotta make sure we get that correct. You know, that was in 2010, it was eliminated, now we're just getting reimbursements for that, as Mr. Hoskins said. But that's $14 million over a 12-year period. So if you start compounding that of how that's been eliminated. You know, so in 2010, we received $2.2 million, a little over $2.2 million. Look at the connection between that amount and what we're asking for. It really is to try to offset that loss. So since that time, you compound the money we've lost, it's been $7.6 million. As you know, Mr. Blom said, it's going to start to phase out, and it's going to phase out entirely, I think, in 2022, where those reimbursements will no longer be there. That's another $6.4 million in revenues. Unfortunately, you know, that's not the only issue that we've really dealt with here in Brooklyn. And the foundation is the foundation, or where they would get state dollars from the state, has also been. And that's been something that I've taken it upon myself to lobby down in Columbus. I've testified twice. I've talked with multiple people down there, probably 4 or 5 different times. From obviously our previous representative, Marty Sweeney. I've talked with people in the governor's office, Ohio Department of Education, the Legislative Service Commission, as well as the Senate. So that's been something that we have really fought and fought hard. As you said, as I said, you know, this is last year in the General Assembly 132 when he had proposed this legislation. Now, his daughter has taken over his representative position, Bride Sweeney. Now, I put there that she is considering, you know, similar legislation. Considering being the key word. Why is that? Similar to what Mr. Changari just said. You know, because a lot of people have been talking about, well, what about this new proposed school funding model? We probably know it as the Cupp-Patterson piece. The Cupp and Patterson being the two representatives, one is a Republican, one is a Democrat, a bipartisan effort to really look at school funding once and for all. I mean, those of you who are on the school board, others know, the DeRolf piece from back in the early 90s, they said that school funding was unconstitutional. And they've been trying to fix it, they've been band-aiding it, so much so that, you know, they have this formula, but only about 15% of the school districts in the state of Ohio are even on the formula. We, of course, were a capped district. But I want to talk about this proposed model. You know, because it's now just being introduced in the House. It's in committee. They're talking about it. What they'd like to do is obviously get it into the biennium budget, which is due on June 30th. You know, but again, I guess got to tell you, as I've learned going down there, this is how the sausage is made. It's got to get through the House and those committees. It's got to get through the Senate. And then it's got to get past the governor. Those are three big pass-throughs. And again, what's it going to look like when it finally gets out of there is what worries me. At the current point, I got to be honest, I think it's good for Brooklyn. I've told Representative Sweeney, Bride Sweeney, this is great. As it is right now, please push it. So I'm hoping that that's the case. But I got to tell you, it's a proposal. Now, if approved, I got to just say, it's still unclear. You know, this is why I say this is how the sausage is made. You know, what are going to be the pass-through dollars? How are they going to take out charter school funding? How are they going to take out the open enrollment funding? Those are all things that happen with these funding pieces. We know firsthand what happens when the charter school funding and the open enrollment starts to just taken from our bit there. If approved, again, in its current form, we'd receive $600,000 additional next year. Really what that would do is offset some of the losses that we have. So that's great. Nobody's going to look a gift horse in the mouth. But I got to tell you, let me just repeat, we've lost $7.6 million over the last 9 years. If approved for next year, we would still be receiving less money than the non-public schools are receiving. So remember, that was one of the pushes that I with the legislation with Marty Sweeney was, hey, we want to get the same amount that non-pubs are getting. So even with those additional dollars, we wouldn't be up there after fiscal year 20. Bottom line is this. It's a proposal. Mr. Singer, just before the meeting, showed me an article of the Berea School District. Mr. Shepard, their superintendent, who I know very well from the first ring, he says he's cautiously optimistic. He's probably a little more optimistic than even I am. But I'm hoping. No guarantees what it's going to look like. You know, we don't know what it's going to look like if it gets even through the House. I think it will. I think it'll get through the House, if I had to really hedge my bet. Again, the current proposal would add, $600,000 to the district from the state. Again, we're losing 2.3 in tangible personal property taxes. Even if the proposal gets into the budget, there's still a negative cash balance at the end of 21. I mean, that's another thing that Mr. Hoskin and I have talked about. Again, the bottom line is this: issue 1 is critically important. We have to have this. It's very, very critical for us to do this. I don't like to be this person, but again, this is April's meeting. May is just a month away. What happens if it doesn't pass? We're going to have to make significant cuts. I'm going to have to come to you next month with reductions. but I need to repeat this. We're gonna have to have new money. The school district we cannot continue to operate without new dollars coming in. And that's why issue 1 is so critical to us. Again, I would have to come to you next month. If it didn't, we would be looking at, and I would have recommendations to you in the following places: administrative positions, teaching positions, also looking at our classified support staff positions and hours, as well as, extracurriculars, athletic, supplemental contracts. Unfortunately, we're a people business. So,
Basically, everything's on the table.
yes. So, know that, I don't want to spend time doing that stuff, but I've had to. So we are prepared if in fact that happens. Nonetheless, I want to end on a high note. I think our Support Our Schools Levy Committee is doing some wonderful work. They're really working hard. They've gotten the message out. They've done one night of campaigning. Tomorrow night, they're going to be doing some phone calling, I understand. There's been a lot of mailers that have been out. We've had our 3 finance forums. We've had some pretty good attendance, some pretty good responses to that. So, people are asking myself and Mr. Hoskin questions, calling us, contacting us on that. I know they're doing that. Again, we're hoping to preserve those big school opportunities in our small school setting here in Brooklyn. And I think, we have a lot of work this month, but
Correct.
good stuff. So, thanks, Mr. Changary, for that perfect segue. That was great. You got it. So that concludes my report.
Thank you. Thank you, Dr. Dykoff. On to the treasurer's report. Mr. Hoskins.
Just a couple of updates. Working on catastrophic cost reimbursements. They are due April 30th. I've got most of the data collected. Mrs. Jones and I are working together on a few things. Should have that ready, I'm hoping by Thursday, to at least have it ready to submit to the state. We don't know what we'll get back, because that's always a shot in the dark, because it's funded by residual funding. How much do you have? How many people claim funds? And what do you get back? So I think last year we got about 33% of what we submitted returned, and that wasn't just us, but that was statewide. The other thing I'm working on is starting to prepare budgets and doing the budgeting process for the departments and the building principals, administrators for next year.
Okay. Appreciate it. We're going to go on to board reports, board members and committee reports. We're going to start with Mr. Roper today.
Thank you, Mr. President. I thank everybody here tonight. Thanks to Mr. Long and Mr. Changary for your comments. Thanks to Mr. Wingler and the Project Lead the Way. I mentioned it in my report last month, but yeah, seeing the banner up there kind of brings it on home. I was glad to see that. In other Polaris news, the Broadcasting and Video Production, Business Professional and Office Technology, Computer Network Academy, and Marketing and Entrepreneurship students recently competed in the Business Professionals of America, the BPA state competition in Columbus. BPA is the leading career technical student organization for young people pursuing careers in business, finance, marketing, and information technology. Statewide, there are 9,385 members in 18 regions, and nationally, there's 43,000 in over 2,300 chapters across 23 states. Hundreds of young people from around Ohio competed in this year's state competition, including 39 from Polaris. Of those competitors, 7 finished in the top 5 and qualified to compete at the Nationals in Anaheim on May 1st through the 5th. One of them was from Brooklyn, Jessica Jasalonis, who placed 4th in business in banking and finance. 2 other Brooklyn students also placed in the top 10, Marcello Caracelia in prepared speech, and Carrie Walker in advanced office systems and procedures. So congratulations to them. We also had a report on high school enrollment for the upcoming 1920 school year. There are still 52 seats open in various disciplines with 8 programs, but 8 programs are overbooked. Those applicants will be asked if another program that they're interested in, and that they would be willing to take that one. The Electronics and Alternative Energy program has had attendance dwindling in the recent years, so the program is kind of morphing into like a custodial maintenance program with instruction in electrical, welding, machining, plumbing, and other fields like that. Studies have shown that there's a need that's become very apparent. I've also been doing some research on percentages of districts that have that send students to vocational tech and the related effectiveness of how many kids that are sent. The mark is usually about if 25% of your students, junior and senior students, go to vocational ed, it's a pretty good earmark for success for those students. Brooklyn has always had the largest percentage of students attending Polaris I can remember. This year we will have 48% of our juniors and seniors attending. I always get dirty looks from the guy from Strongsville because they've never hit 20 since I've been there. A few months ago I spoke about a company called SignPro that basically the owner of the company turned it over and set it up as a Polaris program. With the renovation of Berea High School, the program may be moved to Polaris and have everything done there. There's a possibility that freshmen and sophomores could be added to the juniors and seniors that are going there now. I'd like to congratulate the 234 honor roll students, 168 merit roll students, 25 high school athletic academic award winners, and 74 middle school athletic academic award winners. It's well deserved. I could talk about issue 1, but I think Dr. Glykoff covered it superbly, and I'm sure my fellow board members will also be saying stuff about it too, but it's a need. That's pretty much all I can say. I can be reached at james.oper@bcshurricanes.org or at 216-485-8195, and that concludes my report.
Thank you, Mr. Oper. On to Mrs. Barczyk.
Thank you, Mr. President. I would also like to thank Mr. Wingler and Mr. Blum. Thank you for your question and verifying that, because I know some people don't understand, and it's better just to get the answers directly from Mr. Hoskins and know it like no one knows it like he does, and so no one can explain it like he does also. Mr. Chingari, thank you for your comments and thank you for your for going down there and for that attending that meeting, and also for then fighting on our behalf with the state funding. Thank you so much, because it's definitely, we need it and it's very much appreciated.
He loves to argue.
The next, yeah, the nice term is debating, and that is the nice kind term. Domestic violence meeting will be on Thursday, the 25th at 6 p.m. at the Firehouse. I would like to thank our Support Our Schools committee and all that they have done. But what I really like to say about the levy on May 7th, issue 1, is there's 1,400 students who are depending on each of you to vote. They can't vote. If they could, we would have no problem passing a levy, because they know the real need that we need here. And they don't want to lose the programs and the classes and the extracurriculars and all of the things that I could go on and on and on and on and list about. They don't want to lose those opportunities. And I think our kids deserve all of those and more. And I know as a board, we've talked about it, we'd love to give them even more opportunities than we do, but it really is all about how much we can afford. We have to stay within our means. The state of Ohio does not let us run on a deficit, so we have to stay in those means. And so to prevent anything from being cut, any personnel, any programs, please vote yes on May 7th. Please tell your neighbors to vote yes on May 7th. Please talk to everyone you can, because it's vital to what our school will look like next year if it does not pass. It'll be a very sad thing to see what we end up as next year if issue 1 doesn't pass. And I know as a parent, but as a community member, what makes a community is the school system. And as long as we're strong and we're going in a positive direction, and I think we're gaining momentum and we're going where we need to go, we need issue 1 to pass to keep that momentum going, so that we can have a city that puts value on our students' education and puts the kids first. So I will go off my soapbox now, and I would like to also wish everyone a happy Easter. I hope everyone has a good time with their families. I can always be reached at 216-406-4304 by text, by phone. Please don't hesitate to call me. And that is all I have, Mr. President.
Thank you. On to Mr. Singer.
Thank you, Mr. President. Gratitude for the presentation by our high school students and 8th graders. Hopefully they'll make battle bots someday. Love to see that. I'd like to congratulate in advance, as Mr. Oper did, to honor our merit roll and honor roll recipients for this quarter. The list keeps growing. I'd like to wish everybody a happy Easter and a safe Easter. The weather is getting a little better and warmer, so we see a lot more kids on the streets. So just be cognizant, be wary of those driving around the side streets of Brooklyn. There'll probably be some kids who are off school out there playing. Mr. Chingari, you stole my thunder on the levy support, but the one word that really stands out is political fodder. You know, I hate to say it, in almost the 10 years I've been here, I've heard a lot of different promises being made, but very few kept. So, you know, quoting from the Berea superintendent, I too am cautiously optimistic. Hopefully, you know, maybe this is the time that we get an increase in funding from the state of Ohio and the legislators start thinking about why we're a little more important to the casinos and casino revenue and sports gambling. Because you look at the legislative calendar, you see their concentration is on sports betting and not so much on our schools. So I think they have the priorities a little mixed up. And maybe with the sports betting, we'll get a little more money from the state as well, but I'm not too overly optimistic on that one either. But that segues into, again, just my saying, please support issue 1. The only way you can really support our schools in issue 1 is by voting. I still remember the one levy that we had that lost by a few votes, and I was shocked to see some of my friends and neighbors who said, I forgot to vote. Please don't forget to vote. If you want a reminder call or a reminder text, give me a call, 216-978-1931. Be glad to call you to remind you to go and vote. I do want to wish my our 8th graders going to Washington, D.C. A great journey, a safe journey, and hope they take the opportunity not only to see the majestic monuments, and I believe they're going to Arlington Cemetery, which is a really wonderful place to see and a very solemn place, and also see the great buildings that our government has built. But more importantly, I hope that they learn to see what goes on in those buildings, to see how our government works as a democratic republic, and why it's so important to have a good understanding of how our government works by going to Washington, D.C. So with that, again, happy Easter to everybody. I can be reached at 216-978-1931. It's my cell. I also get texts. Thank you, Mr. President.
You got it. On to Mr. Hennings.
Thanks, Mr. President. Well, as we wrap up April, we went from one group of talented Brooklyn kids to another group of talented kids. The 2019 Brooklyn Ice Show Showstoppers will be next week. Tickets are $10 for adults and $6 for students. A 2-night pass is $15 for adults and $10 for students. This is Friday, April 26th and April 27th. The doors open at 6. Also, summer youth baseball and softball registration will take place until May 8th. Please, if you plan on signing your kids up, please bring their birth certificate so they know what age bracket to put them in. Also, learn to swim. Registration begins May 1st. The first session is June 1st to July 10th. The second session is July 15th to August 14th. And last but not least, we have the Brooklyn Summer Day Camp. Registration starts May 1st, 2019. Residents are $275. And as my fellow board members, please vote on issue 1. It means the world to the kids. We all need it. We want to keep the school the same way. It keeps the city strong. It works for everybody. So thank you very much and happy Easter.
Thank you. All right. Just a reminder, May 7th, important issue 1. Thank all those who participated today. Thank everybody. Happy Easter to all. We're to go on to approval of minutes and financial statements. Tonight's reader is Mr. Oper.
Thank you, Mr. President. Resolved that the minutes of the March 27, 2019 Board of Education meeting be adopted, and all action taken by the Board of Education at said meeting is hereby reaffirmed and approved.
Can I have a motion, please?
So moved.
Can I have a second?
Second.
Questions, comments? Mr. Hoskins, can you call the roll, please?
Mrs. Barcheck?
Yes.
Mr. Singer?
Yes.
Mr. Hennings?
Yes.
Mr. Oper?
Yes.
Mr. Neal?
Yes.
Resolved that the Brooklyn City School District Board of Education hereby approves the financial statements of receipts and expenditures for the month of March 2019, including all purchase orders paid and all then and now statements for the month of March as submitted.
Can I have a motion,
So moved.
please? Can I have a second?
Second.
Questions, comments? Mr. Hoskins, can you call the roll, please?
Mrs. Barcheck?
Yes.
Mr. Singer?
Yes.
Mr. Hennings?
Yes.
Mr. Oper?
Yes.
Mr. Neal?
Yes.
Resolved the Brooklyn City School District Board of Education hereby commends the following students per the attachments for honor roll, merit roll, and winter athletic academic honors.
Can I have a motion,
So
please?
moved.
Can I have a second?
Second.
Questions, comments?
Congratulations.
Jim,
Congratulations.
Jim, what were those numbers again? I knew
Dig
I'd
it
do it
out.
to you.
All right.
Come on.
234, wait a minute.
168, 25.
Come on.
Sorry about it.
234 honor roll, 168 merit roll, 25 high school athletic academic, and 74 middle school athletic
Awesome.
academic.
Thank you. Appreciate it. Good job, kids. Mr. Hoskins, you call the roll, please.
Mrs. Barcheck?
Yes.
Mr. Singer?
Yes.
Mr. Hennings?
Yes.
Mr. Oper?
Yes.
Mr. Neal?
Yes.
Resolved the Brooklyn City, resolved the Brooklyn City School District Board of Education hereby commends the girls varsity basketball team for academic excellence in Hurricane Athletics, the highest team GPA award.
Can I have a motion, please?
So moved.
Can I have a second?
Second.
Questions, comments?
Congratulations.
Yeah, so this is a big deal because we typically like to do this at the winter sports, but because we didn't have the grades from Polaris, it was held. And so we held it to the board meeting, and as you saw, we have some representatives of our girls' basketball team that had the highest team GPA.
Good job.
Coach is here. Come on forward.
Stand up.
Actually, and what they do is Coach Verba has the official academic excellence Hurricane athletes.
Step in
Photo
there.
op,
Step
photo
in
op.
there.
Highest team GPA, so they
Step
get
in
to,
there.
once you girls, you're representing the team here.
We got a pic.
Coach, come on up, come on up.
Come on, Coach.
Not to mention, y'all know the shirts there? Look at it, Brooklyn Hurricanes. Not Canes, but Hurricanes.
So,
We need a picture there.
a
Please do.
3.49 cumulative GPA, so. that
Nice
is-
school spirit
Wow.
there.
Awesome.
Good job. Appreciate it.
That gets hung just outside the athletic office. There's great pride in that. I remember being at the fall sports banquet, and when they announced that for the soccer team to get it, I mean, the soccer team just exploded. So I know this is a sense of pride for the teams on this, but it really does talk to really what we are, and it's student athletes. And you know, I give these young ladies a lot of credit for that. So.
Thank you. Anybody else?
Thanks, Coach.
Good job. Can you call the roll, Mr. Hoskins,
Mrs.
please?
Barcheck?
Yes.
Mr. Singer?
Yes.
Mr. Hennings?
Yes.
Mr. Oper?
Yes.
Mr. Neal?
Yes.
Thank you, girls, for coming. Thanks,
Good
Coach.
job.
Appreciate it.
Thank you.
Okay, resolved that the Brooklyn City School District Board of Education hereby authorizes the superintendent to enter in a primary service agreement with the Educational Service Center of Cuyahoga County per Ohio Revised Code 3313.843 for the 2019-2020 and the 2020-2021 school years. Agreement on file in the central office.
Motion, please.
moved.
Can I have a second?
Second.
Questions, comments?
So, you know, as a school district, we actually, you know, could freelance. We could go to any, you know, educational service center. This is an agreement with the Northeast Ohio, or formerly known as the Cuyahoga County ESC.
Okay.
And so we pay a small bit per student to provide, and they provide us, you know, curriculum services, professional development opportunities, assistance with special education, you know, a variety of services that we receive from them. So, you know, actually, it's now become the Northeast Ohio ESC, and has become a very, and they're a great service provider. So this is a standard. This is a 2-year agreement.
Anybody else?
So we're paying $650 per student
Correct.
based on the same population that OD uses?
Yes.
Okay. And that's just the basic, and then what we pay extra for whatever other services?
If we wanted to get those services, yeah. So, for example, if we wanted to get purchase EMIS, which we do through there. That would be an extra cost, or certainly, there's other availabilities for us, especially as a smaller district, that sometimes is a more viable option for us.
Anybody else? Mr. Hoskins, can you call the roll, please?
Mrs. Barcheck?
Yes.
Mr. Singer?
Yes.
Mr. Hennings?
Yes.
Mr. Oper?
Yes.
Mr. Neal?
Yes,
Is this an as noted?
absolutely.
Just checking. This is to authorize
me, it wouldn't be.
our 2019-2020 membership in the Ohio High School Athletic Association as noted.
Motion, please.
So moved.
Second.
Second.
Questions, comments?
Pretty standard OHSAA involvement, that says that we're gonna abide by OHSAA rules.
Anybody else? Mr. Hoskins, can you call the roll, please?
Mrs. Barcheck?
Yes.
Mr. Singer?
Yes.
Mr. Hennings?
Yes.
Mr. Oper?
Yes.
Mr. Neal?
Yes.
Resolved, the Brooklyn City School District Board of Education hereby approves granting continuing contracts to the teachers named below per completion of all documentation as required by Ohio Revised Code. Jacinta Bader, Class 4, Step 6, Jack Hands, Class 4, Step 6, Lisa Kubinski, Class 5, Step 8, and Wendy Smith, Class 4, Step 11.
Can I have a motion, please?
So moved.
Can I have a second?
Second.
Questions, comments?
So, just for those who may be new to this, as teachers begin their career, if they've accumulated so many years in the district, as well as then earning, 30 graduate hours beyond that, they're eligible to apply for a continuing contract. So that means that on a yearly basis, we wouldn't look at and do a limited contract with them. So these folks have done that. They've gone through the process. They've taken extra courses, gotten those. And to be honest, as I look at this group, this is a pretty very involved group of teachers here. As I noted in some of my reports to you folks, you've got folks that are student council at both the elementary and at the high school here. First Ring Academy leadership, a variety of activities these folks are in. So very involved and good educators. So I'm proud to recommend them for continuing contract.
Anybody else? I thought you had some. Mr. Hoskins, can you call the roll, please?
Mrs. Barcheck?
Yes.
Mr. Singer?
Yes.
Mr. Hennings?
Yes.
Mr. Oper?
Yes.
Mr. Neal?
Yes.
Resolved that the Brooklyn City School District Board of Education hereby approves the appointment of Alexandra Zubik, classroom assistant, 4 hours, 45 minutes per day, Appendix B, Step 2, effective April 1st, 2019, and Danielle Kubacki, pupil services secretary, 4 hours per day, Appendix B, Step 3, effective April 9th, 2019, for the remainder of the 2018-2019 school year.
Can I have a motion, please?
So moved.
Can I have a second?
Second.
Questions, comments?
These are some classified positions that, we had resignations. So, Alexandra in a position down in one of our special needs classrooms as a classroom assistant, and then Danielle is actually in our office where Alyssa Kachia, she had resigned, so.
Anybody else? Mr. Hoskins, can you call the roll, please?
Mrs. Barcheck?
Yes.
Mr. Singer?
Yes.
Mr. Hennings?
Yes.
Mr. Oper?
Yes.
Mr. Neal?
Yes.
Resolved, the Brooklyn City School District Board of Education, in accordance with Ohio Revised Code 3313.26, gratefully accepts the generous donations of $20 from Leanne Jalad, $20 from Salam Jalad, and $492.50 from the Athletic Boosters, under the condition that the board shall have full control over these funds.
Can I have a motion,
So moved.
please? Can I have a second?
Second.
Questions, comments?
Thank you.
The first two gentlemen that came in, or on the list, actually came into the high school and donated $20 each. And they are students at the school.
Beautiful. Thank you.
Was this for the public? Was this something specific that they
No,
were giving?
they
Okay.
just, Mrs. Barb called me actually and said, I have a couple students that want to give money to the school. What do I do? I said, take it. So, but I also wanted to make sure that they got recognized at a board meeting.
Appreciate that.
She's our athletic boosters.
Mr. Hoskins, can you call the roll, please?
Mrs. Barcheck?
Yes.
Mr. Singer?
Yes.
Mr. Hennings?
Yes.
Mr. Oper?
Yes.
Mr. Neal?
Yes.
Resolved, the minutes of the March 14th, 2019 Finance Committee meeting be accepted.
Can I have a motion, please?
So moved.
Can I have a second?
Second.
Questions, comments? Just just, we're influxing the finance committee meetings into the notes. Mr. Hoskins, can you call the roll?
Mrs. Barcheck?
Yes.
Mr. Singer?
Yes.
Mr. Hennings?
Yes.
Mr. Oper?
Yes.
Mr. Neal?
Yes. Do we have any correspondence related to action information? Nobody? Anybody have any other business?
I just have one little note. I found from a parent that we have a high school student, Gio, who watches our board meetings religiously. So I just wanted to say hi, Gio, as he goes and watches
Gio?
these online. So hopefully, just wanted to say hi to him, and hopefully he enjoyed tonight.
Yes.
So
Future board member.
Yes.
perhaps.
There you go. Just a reminder to the board, April 24th, Wednesday, we have our our regular board meeting, the 24th of the Treasurers Conference. Just a reminder to everybody, 6 PM. Everybody's invited. Announcement of the next regular Board of Education meeting is, again, Wednesday, April 24th, 2019, in the Treasurers Conference located in the Board of Education office, 9200 Bidoff, Brooklyn, Ohio, 6 PM. We are gonna go into executive session. Resolve that the Brooklyn City School District Board of Education enter into an executive session preparing for conducting or reviewing negotiations, bargaining sessions with employees concerning their compensation or other terms and conditions of their employment pursuant to RC 121.22G4. Can I have a motion,
So
please?
moved.
Can I have a second?
Second.
Mr. Hoskins, can you call the roll, please?
Mrs. Barcheck?
Yes.
Mr. Singer?
Yes.
Mr. Hennings?
Yes.
Mr. Oper?
Yes.
Mr. Neal?
Yes, there will be no further action. I will gavel us out. So after this, after executive session, there'll be no further board action.
Time is